What the hell do you think you're doing in my bed? Edward Hawthorne's voice tore through the hush of that old house like a shotgun blast if you were there. You'd have felt it, that sound, that raw charge, the way rainwater slid off his coat in angry rivers, pooling at his feet, but not even close to soaking up the mess he'd just walked into, because his world, already hanging by a thread, now looked downright unrecognizable. There at the very heart of his fortress was Maya Williams, lying on his bed but not alone. The twins, Ethan and Eli, those little storm chasers who never, ever slept through the night, were curled up beside her tangled in blankets, heads pressed against her, breathing steady like maybe for once their nightmares had taken the night off. And yeah, the room smelled like rain and lavender, and something so fragile you were afraid to breathe too hard in case it broke. She startled, of course, but it wasn't guilt. It was that stunned animal look people get when the earth shifts under their feet. Her first words were barely more than a breath. I can explain, hands out, voice soft, not begging, not lying, just trying to keep peace in a room where peace never lasted more than a few seconds. But the boys started to stir, Eli whimpered, Ethan's nose began to bleed, and before Maya could even finish her thought, Edward's anger surged out of him. Physical, brutal slap that cracked through the bedroom, the kind of sound you hear in your bones. She staggered, hand to cheek, but she didn't break. Not in the way you'd expect. Her eyes met his, and there was a look in them, not of defeat, but of mourning. She'd already lost something here, even if she didn't know what it was yet. You're fired. Get out, he snapped, the words punching holes in the quiet. So she moved, slowly, like someone walking on a frozen lake, every step careful, not for herself, but for the boys she bent to kiss their heads, so gentle, so final, then picked up her shoes and left. No words, no drama, just a red handprint and a silence that filled every inch of that mansion. Mrs. Keller, the old housekeeper, caught her on the stairs, eyes wide, mouth opening to protest, but Maya was gone before she could speak. Out into the drizzle, coat pulled tight, back straight, like she'd learned a long time ago that the world doesn't stop just because you're hurting. Upstairs, Edward stood staring at his children. No more screaming, no more tossing, no tears. Just sleep, real sleep. 14 nannies, 3 therapists, and a battalion of doctors couldn't do that. But she could, and now she was gone, and he was left holding nothing but his own shame. On the nightstand, a note: if you can't stay for them, at least don't push away the ones who will. Not signed, but as damning as any verdict. Mrs. Keller, hovering in the hallway, murmured the truth. She stayed because they begged, sir, not because she wanted to. He heard it, but didn't answer. The house settled into a hush, that night of strange, unfinished peace. Downstairs, Edward nursed a scotch he wouldn't drink. Upstairs, the twins slept, unaware of how fragile good things can be. He stared at Maya's note, his reflection in the window just a man whose grief had curdled into control, whose anger had made a stranger out of him. He sat in their room, head in hands, not even sure what he was mourning anymore. Maya, meanwhile, wandered the city, shoulders hunched against the rain. She hadn't cried. Not yet. She was one of those people who learned early to keep tears private. The bench outside the train station felt colder than she remembered. The vending machine coffee went lukewarm in her hands. Some stranger offered her a tissue. She took it, managed a small smile, and stared up at the darkening sky, thinking how weird it was that a single moment can change the story you tell yourself about who you are. And, sometimes the world throws in a twist just to keep things interesting. Edward, instead of retreating into his fortress, picked up a breakfast tray, the next morning eggs, toast, fruit, the first meal he'd made since his wife died. He set it down by the boys, tried to answer their questions. Where's Miss Maya? Did she do something wrong? Did you yell at her? No lies. Just a nod, a heavy silence, a promise, I'll fix it. But Maya didn't get on that train. She ended up teaching a writing class to girls at shelter kids with stories like hers. She didn't tell them about Edward, or the twins, or the mansion with its haunted corners. She told them about staying, about knowing your worth when others don't. And when she left, she found a note stuck to her bike. They asked for you. Both of them. No name. Just hope. By sunset, Edward found her at the community center, in a room full of teenagers and sketchbooks. No grand apology, just a raw, human admission. I was wrong. I let fear talk louder than truth. I hit you. I will regret it for the rest of my life. She looked at him, tired but not angry, and told him what he didn't want to hear. You can't fix this with words. What your sons need isn't control with connection. But he asked her to come back. Not as staff, but as partner. Partner in their care, he clarified, feeling the word land heavier than he meant. She agreed, but set the no cameras, dinner at the table, new house rules written together with the kids, and a line in the sand. Raise your hand again to anyone. I'm gone for good. Deal. That first morning back was nothing like a fairy tale. The butler blinked in surprise. The boys ran down the stairs, arms out, clutching homemade signs and sketchbooks. The house was alive, not perfect. The rules they wrote that day weren't just for the kids. Always knock. No yelling. Hugs must be asked for. Pancakes on Sundays. Forgiveness even when it's hard. And, of course, the world doesn't wait for you to catch your breath. Word got out Edward's in-laws filed for custody, dragging every secret and misstep into the open. Maya stood in court, told the judge the truth. Not the version people want to hear, but the one that matters. I stayed because someone needed to, not for a paycheck, not for praise, but because kids need someone who doesn't run when it gets hard. The judge, after listening to accusations, heartbreak, and the cold facts of what love looks like in a broken family, ruled in Edward's favor. Outside, Edward said, "You saved them again." But Maya shook her head. "You did. You stayed in the room." Life didn't suddenly turn simple. There were days the house felt like a minefield, nights when old ghosts whispered. But the center grew Maya at the helm, Edward funding the vision, and Belle, a hard-edged, brilliant foster teen with blue hair and a chip on her shoulder, stepping into the story just when everyone thought the cast was set. Belle wasn't there to be saved. She was there to save herself, and maybe to teach Maya something about boundaries. Twists kept coming. A smear campaign in the press. Forged documents, anonymous threats. Maya had to defend her right to stay, not just for the twins or Belle or any other kid, but for herself. It was Belle, in the end, who stood up at a press conference and told the world, "I'm not a case number. I'm a girl who paints birds because I forgot how to fly, and now I'm learning again." The world listened, sometimes cruelly, sometimes kindly, but the house at the center stood firm. The rules stayed, taped to the fridge, smudged and worn. Family grew to mean more than blood. Lorraine, Maya's estranged mother, returned, bringing with her a tangle of apologies, broken memories, and unexpectedly a second chance. Maya's father showed up, too, and if that wasn't enough to knock you off your axis, nothing would be. He wanted grace, not forgiveness. She gave him something close. Through storms and seasons, the center became sanctuary. The Hall of Resilience drawings, poems, photos became a monument to scars and survival. Maya learned that healing wasn't a finish line. It was a series of choices to stay, to forgive, to rebuild. Every day, new challenges. Every day, a new way to answer the question, are you going to show up or not? And the answer, day after day, was yes. Yes to the twins, now brave and wild again. Yes to Belle, now a speaker, mentor, the voice for kids still lost in the system. Yes to Edward, whose proposal was less about romance and more about building something that would last longer than either of them alone. Yes to Lorraine, who kept showing up. Yes to his staff, a village, a mosaic of survivors who learned to fill their cracks with gold. On the second anniversary, Maya rode a yellow bike beside Ethan and watched as the boys ran ahead chasing butterflies. Edward asked, "You think the storms are over?" She answered, "I don't know. But we've built something storms can't wash away." And in the gathering dusk, under the old oak tree, they all stood bruised, imperfect but whole. Not because they had no cracks, but because they'd filled them with gold. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what healing is. Not forgetting what broke you, but building something better with the pieces. So I have to ask, where do you stand on this, honestly? Is it right to forgive, to stay, to rebuild? Or are some wounds just too deep to heal? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me, what's your version of staying? What does family mean to you? Because at the end of the day, it's the voices that join in yours, mine, all of us that make the story real.